Everyone, welcome to the Soulful Circuit podcast. I'm here with Ashby Drake, the owner and founder of Satori Yoga and Wellness. We are so excited to have you here today, Ashby, to hear a little bit about your story and your vision and your life and experiences. At the Soulful Circuit podcast here, we're really focused on just understanding ourselves and the world around us. And, I've had the opportunity to go to your studios a few times, and I've been beyond impressed before, like what you put together in that space. And I'm just so excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here. And thank you for saying that about Satori. She's my baby.
Okay, good. You did an amazing job with that baby. Okay. All right, so let's get this thing started. So today we're going to be talking, of course, about yoga, but we're going deeper with that, right? Like there's so many aspects of yoga that, we don't really talk about, or people don't really understand why they do it, right?
Right.
We like to wear the clothes. We like to we like to look snatched when we run to the store. But at the same time, like it's deeper than that, right? There's elements of breathing and vibrations and frequency and movement that, as a regular person, you don't really think about. And that's why it's so amazing to have someone like you in the seat across from me who's actually like made it their life and their passion along with other things. So I welcome you the opportunity to educate us all here today as we try to discover ourselves a little bit deeper. So why did you start Satori Studios, and how were you able to make this dream a reality at such a young age?
Right. I love this question because I started teaching yoga really young. So a lot of times when people find out, I'm 28 now, and they're always like, how did you start up? Why are you already a business owner? How did this come about? And realistically, I was lucky to start so young. I started teaching at 18 years old. And while a lot of people find yoga for the physical aspect, right? The workout, the exercise, and then the spirituality and mental, benefits kind of come later as like almost a side effect. Like, yay, this is good. I'm happy that we can get into the nitty-gritty with spirituality 10 years into my practice. For me, it was kind of the opposite. I was super hyperactive as a teenager. I was always moving, and I really needed to find something natural that could calm my mind, something that could keep me focused. And after my first yoga class ever, I was obsessed. I immediately found a yoga teacher training. I was in Kentucky, so that was kind of a crazy.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So I lucked into the best training I could possibly find. To this day, I think it is honestly better than most I could have found if I was already in LA. It just, the ball started rolling really early. So when I began thinking about opening a yoga studio, I was probably 19, and I was telling people, I'm going to open a yoga studio. I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was serving tables. I did all the things that,
You manifested.
I truly, it was a big, long, mental investment. And then over time, it just started falling together. And so the goal has always been for Satori to be a place where people can really deepen their practice, whether that's the physical. Our classes are, pretty intense, but it's not intense like, oh, this is a workout class or it's a HIIT training. There's places for that. It's more so building your endurance so that your deeper practice can follow it. And that can be your mental practices, your spirituality, breath work. The movement, of course, is a huge factor, but the goal has always just been where you go when you're ready for more.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so but you have layers, right? So one thing we know about you is despite you being the owner of a yoga studio, you're also a music producer, right? So you are navigating two very different dynamics, And it's actually fascinating to me. So I would love to know, how do you balance these different aspects of your career, and in what ways do they complement each other? Is it like a yin to a yang type of situation where you have your stillness and breath work, and then you have like, beats? Like what's it like?
So for a long time, it really was balancing yang and yin. It was like I was DJing at one point until
a DJ,
right?
Oh my god! Okay.
So with music production, especially electronic music, one of the main avenues that you'll find to be relevant in that industry is DJing or performing of some sort. And I wasn't really in the game of singing. I did that when I was younger. Yeah. I've always been around music, my family full of musicians. But for me, I was like, I love the atmosphere. I love people. I love the energy. And it was really funny because I started teaching at this really young age. I was sometimes DJing until 4 a.m. and then turning around and teaching a 6 a.m. class. It was crazy for a little while. But after so much time, I realized that the lifestyle of being a yoga instructor and holding space for people was really more my speed and what I wanted to do long term. But to answer your question, whether they complement or it's kind of like a battle between the two, once I decided I'm going to open the studio, I'm going to really plant roots in LA, for a while, obviously. At some point, I hope we grow outside of LA as well. But it all started falling together how music is so complementary to the art of teaching yoga. For me, music has always been a form of communication, communicating emotions or having hard conversations that you don't know how to put into words. So with yoga, the way they kind of complement each other is, you've been to some of my classes.
I love you. You're great.
Thank you. I love having you. A big way that I've found to connect the two is through my playlist, or, I lead sound baths, and it's been, thank you so much. It's something it's a great way that I've found to intertwine the two worlds. So whether that's just through sound baths, that's me physically playing those instruments, or even more intimate in a way, my playlist for classes. If you've ever done a teacher training with me or been one of my mentees, you know this. You've had it drilled ad nauseum.
Okay.
I think musicality as a yoga instructor is so important, especially if you teach a style that you play music in the classroom, right? Some, traditional Ashtanga styles, you might not have to play music, and that's great. So you don't need that skill. But I still think as a person holding space and creating a container for people to heal, to feel their emotions, or get through something, or just have their own breakthrough, their own experience, you all are co-creating a space, right? And the music that you're playing is massive. Yeah. So that entire tangent, just to say, long term, I found that knowing music on a deeper level has made me more able to connect to my students, to connect to the classroom, and just to create the container that we want to create. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Ashby, I feel like, you are very intentional about a lot of what you do. And it feels like you're always trying to get in your classes for us to connect with something bigger than ourselves, right? So in your yoga practice, it's like this vibrant tapestry of astrology and breath work, like you were talking before, heat and vibrations. What sparked your passion to ignite these diverse elements into like this type of cohesive yoga practice and experience? Like I mean, especially the breath work and astrology, like tell me what you know about that. Please, what am I doing? Am I doing it right?
So I'm no astrologer, but as far as implementing the spirituality component in my teaching, it's really funny to talk about because, like I said, I was born and raised in Kentucky on a 200-acre farm.
Whoa, you left the farm part out when we talked. Okay, got
right.
it. Layers.
And then layers. There are, I always think of Shrek when I hear that word. It's like onions have layers.
Exactly.
And Ashby has layers.
Okay.
So that was so ridiculous. But it's really interesting because of my background and my upbringing. My mom is really spiritual. My grandma is really spiritual. We all came from a lineage of very, I hate to use the word witchy women, but witchy women. And so it was pretty natural. That's kind of what I was saying with the original question about how Satori came about and how I got into yoga. They all kind of just trickled down. It was like the next step. It was the next layer, right? So for my classes and the way that I teach, I always try to teach in a way that can help my students find out something new about themselves or find what they're looking for. And I don't always know what they're looking for, but the seeds I plant, like you talked about and noticed in one of my classes.
You would always say when we were doing the like, open your third eye. And I was like, what? This woman has layers. Okay, sorry, back to layers.
No.
Yeah.
So
that was deep, yeah.
Yeah, it's the spirituality in the classroom at Satori is rooted in my own practices. And the entire staff, everyone, the team that we've built at Satori has a similar energy, right? They have practices that they share with their students that you might not find in a studio that is corporate or requires you to teach one specific sequence every single time you step in the room. If you do that, it kind of dilutes the connection, right? And whether you're talking about a connection to something bigger,
energy.
And we've had this conversation, but I always talk about finding a connection to God. And when I say that, I use that word loosely. God is really, source, energy, your higher self, the best version of you. God is who you worship or take it for what you will. It doesn't need to be, something you dive too deep into just the word. But that is my goal when I'm teaching yoga is how can we get closer to a collective consciousness, which is what I believe Eckhart Tolle refers to it as. How can we get this community that, has arrived at Satori, or, wherever I'm teaching to feel more connected to their higher self, to feel more connected to their higher power. And that all started with my parents. They were really big on meditating. My mom meditates for hours every morning. Wow. I'm not on that level yet, but I do see yoga and the classes that I teach as a gateway to your personal practices. Hopefully you can take something that you learn in a breathwork class that I lead or one of these incredible classes by Val or Leilani or Yancey, all of these awesome teachers we've gathered. Hopefully you take that and you can start implementing them and digging a little deeper, thinking, why did she do that? What is alternate nostril breathing? What is the purpose behind that? That's really the intention when we're intertwining our spirituality, our mental state with this physical practice or what we see as physical practice. It's one of the 8 limbs of yoga to do physical asana. So.
Oh, got it. Okay, learning so much. So, and as you were talking about that, spirituality often intertwines with physical practice in yoga. Can you describe how this spiritual dimension elevates your experience, right, from participating in yoga, right? I know you kind of went into that, but even more, you're talking about breath work. What am I focused on when I'm doing that breath work, right?
That's a great
what
question.
should that outcome be or what should I feel, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are nervous to ask in class because they don't want to seem like they don't know, and you never know who's been doing yoga since they were 5, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
Sadhguru always says one of the best phrases that we can have in our language or use in language is, I don't know. So I think that's funny because the first step to learning something new is saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm very quick to admit when I don't know something, which is a lot. No, we're all learning. It's part of this journey, but I digress. The point of it is when we're doing breath work or anything for that matter with intention, your yoga practice, your movement, the difference between yoga and going to a Pilates class, which I love Pilates.
Yeah, I know, we see each other there too.
Yes, big fan of all the movement.
Yes.
But the difference between the two practices are, one is it's truly the intention. It's what you go in seeking and also your why, right? So you could do something and go through the motions, and you could go in and do 3 sun A's, 3 sun B's, and then a flow and get into your headstand. And that's incredible. But it's a gateway, and that's what it should be seen as. Originally, there are several, if not most, lineages of yoga that see the movement practice as just preparing your body for stillness. So with that in mind, if you keep that, that intention, maybe that is your intention, or you have a bigger intention, you go in, you need clarity on a question that you have. The goal with your breathwork practice or your yoga practice is to widen the space between your thoughts and widen the stillness, the quiet in your mind to prepare your body for meditation. One thing I've mentioned in a podcast before is I pray to ask for guidance in the morning. And again, praying could just be you putting out a message, right? Or asking your guides.
Yeah, and believing in a power higher than yourself.
Believing in a power higher than yourself, believing that there is someone guiding you, protecting you. So in the morning, I'll pray to ask for that guidance. And the meditation is the space between the thoughts. It's the quiet time to hear answers or to receive answers. That's how I see it. And that's just one way to look at it. But when being very hyperactive, which most of us are at this rate, we have constant distractions, overstimulation. It's really difficult to find that quiet time. It's difficult to get your mind to be still long enough to hear the answers. If you're just praying all the time, which is beautiful, a lot of us don't even take the time to do that. I know it's hard, it's busy. But if you were just praying and then your day starts and it's just rolling, it's going all day and you're, a million miles per hour, then when in that time do you expect to receive an answer? Do you expect to receive guidance, right? With your story, which I'm sure you're going to tell, I hope you do, but with your story, it's a great example of you had so much trauma built up. You had all these emotions and these walls and things that were truly clouding your judgment, your clarity, your connection to your higher self. So when someone says, oh, you're an intuitive, or you have this power, X, Y, and Z, not to go too deep and insane, right, or sound insane if this is a new concept for people, but you're looking at them like, where, how, and how do I connect to that? But there's no time for an answer. There's no time for any response, right? Yeah. And then it wasn't until, I don't know if it was yoga or, something breaks, right? Yeah. Which is what, unfortunately, usually.
Or some, right. Loss of some,
right.
Yep.
Exactly. Something happens. Yeah. And then we are forced into stillness, or maybe we surrender. Surrender.
Loss of ego.
Loss of ego, an ego death, whatever that can come from. Job loss, something that small, or a family member loss, something larger, but whatever it is that brings you to the practice, you usually, if you're in the right headspace and it wasn't the wrong time for you, are kind of at a point in life where you're desperate maybe, or you're just surrendered.
Ready for change,
I need change.
Yep.
I need growth, whatever it is you need. So the practice of specifically breath work, that's a great example just to touch on it, because I think it's less talked about. It's not a newer concept, but newer maybe to the Western world. You might be laying there, your first breathwork class, like, what am I doing? I'm not working out. I'm not sweating, or you might be sweating. But what is the goal here?
We have this natural ability to feel like I always need to be doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way that we make the most out of those practices is when we realize that is the something, right? That's the time you're taking to create clarity, to create space for yourself is going to amplify and move your process forward, move you further along on your journey, even in your career, your workspace, et cetera, right? All that being said, after a breathwork class, you'll notice that space is giving you some sort. You'll find that a lot of people say, I had this crazy realization, or, wow, I just have so much that I'm thinking about. So much came up for me. That's coming up all because, and a lot of times really rapidly after those practices, because it hasn't had space before.
Yep.
There wasn't any room.
Or you didn't give it room.
You didn't give it room.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those distractions are subconsciously intentional because you don't want to feel something.
On my second class with you, I brought my mom, right?
Yes.
And she had an amazing time.
I love that.
But what was so cool is you had a whole astrologer there.
Yes.
What are your thoughts behind astrology? And I will be honest with you, that was the first time a yoga studio ever brought in astrologer to talk to the group. What was your intent behind that? And why do you feel like astrology is such a pivotal point of the practice or self-understanding rather?
Right. I think astrology plays a big role in our ability to understand ourselves. And to understand what's going on energetically, right? Yep. So Alice, the astrologer that came, she's incredible. We'll add her link. She's really awesome. The thing that she does a great job of is career astrology. There's so many facets that you can dig into, that can just give you a better understanding of why things are the way that they are. And whether you subscribe or not, you'll notice there are so many people, I don't believe in astrology, but then you start telling them, even if you do it without saying this is astrology, this is what's going on, they're like, wow, yeah, I have been feeling really heavy, or I have been feeling really tired lately. So the intent whenever we bring Alice in is just to give people some insight on what's going on in the planets, why they feel the way they feel. And I'm always really intentional on who we have speak to classes. So just so that they are very positivity forward, not toxically positive. They'll be real and honest, but they'll say, they're not going to tell you that your life is going to end in 5 years, in 5 years. But rather, here's some steps we can take right now with what's going on in the planets to better ourselves, to get closer to our goals. So it's always, in alignment with giving our students, our community, access to every facet of their spiritual practices, or different avenues to better understand themselves and what's going on internally. So.
I love that. And then, so you're also saying that it's more than just trying to figure out if you should date someone or not. Okay, so it's a little deeper.
There's
a little deeper than that.
There's dating astrology and, compatibility, which I do subscribe to.
Okay.
But it isn't everything. There's career astrology. There's certain times that you are better off starting a new project. And as you found, timing is everything, Timing is everything. It's not saying don't be an actress anymore, but maybe it's saying give yourself some time to rest. This self-care, this week, you could benefit a little more from some self-care. And it's like, oh, it's not about Robert, not liking me because he's a Sagittarius. That's crazy, which is awesome to play with and it's fun.
Yeah.
But there is a little more to it that you can look into.
I love it. Well, Ashby, I know we're at time. I just want to say thank you so much for coming today and talking to all of us at the Soulful Circuit podcast. I learned a lot today. I hope our viewers did too as well. And it's just been so great to have you here. Thank you for your time. I will see you in the studio, of course.
Yes.
And keep making the world a better place through your art and your creativity. I appreciate you, and I know a lot of your students do too as well. So thank you
so much. That means a lot. Thank you for having me. I hope that you learned something out of that, and I hope to see everyone soon.
All right, awesome. Thanks.